All right. So this is just take two of this live stream. Sorry. I had one about this plugin, didn't go very well, so here I am trying it again. This is just basically an overview of the cinematographer light. It's a camera plugin that I use for Unreal. It actually helps quite a bit. There's two versions of this, Light and Pro. If you're just starting off and you just want a plug and play, I guess, drag and drop system, this is for you. The Pro version is if you have like studio cameras and you want to replicate it, then you can use the Pro one. So it's about, I think it's like $19.99, which is I say it's well worth it because what it does, it's basically, and we're here at Sky Girl because I need to take care of some B-roll. So it's found down here. There's content, plugins, and engine. Go down to engine, plugins, and it's down here. So it's going to give you kind of presets. There's a couple of things here. If you want a good security camera, it's right here. So if you drag and drop, what it's going to do is it creates like this fisheye lens. It's pretty useful for what it is. They have cell phones and some, heck, if you want like a really cheap horror film, you can actually use a couple of these things here, like a budget cinema camera. It's pretty good. So what it does, this camera here basically does a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of settings down here, because when you have a basic cinema camera, sorry. So yeah, this is your basic cinema camera. It's the basics. So you have to go in and fix a bunch of stuff. You have to go into film. You'll have to adjust the slope. Only seeing half the screen. Oh, I see. Yeah, let me fix that. There we go. That should do it. All right, so yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so you have to adjust slope and the lenses, and you're gonna have to add stuff like vignettes and adjust. This camera plug-in here does a lot of the heavy lifting, plus it actually adds some post-processing effects for you to use. So it's kind of it does a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to camera adjustments. So let me just drop it in. And not only that, but we're going to I'm going to film an example too. So break through here. So a couple things I was asked about is I kind of go back and forth between the main root here and then this camera component. This, keep in mind, this is just a blueprint, so this is, well, it's kind of like a blueprint, I guess. But you have to think about this. So a couple things here. This is kind of an overview. What I mostly focus on this section here is, one is the focus, because that's where it's going to be, where your main, that's where you want to adjust your, your focus. You don't want your shot anything out of focus. So let's just place something in here. So I'm going to place just a basic cube. Okay. So your first of it is body and lens. We're going to keep the cinema body here, but then your lens. Usually I like to work with prime lenses. There's, if you don't know the difference between prime and zoom, a prime lens is going to be a little more sharper. You know, I don't know. I just work with prime lenses a lot, so. So I don't know. So if you want to use a zoom, you can, but personally, it's up to you. It depends on what you're looking for. But yeah, P and Z, prime and zoom. So we're going to go with like a 50 millimeter. Not even a budget. I'm actually going to go to high end. Let's go with 47. So there's a couple things you can see. It's still in the dark here. And because it's in full automatic, I don't personally like full automatic exposure. So we go to movie. So down here under configure. Target FPS, it depends if you're doing 30, just do 30, 60, but for me I'm just using 24. And then your shutter angle is basically, for motion blur and all that, it's just how much times the light hits the sensor. If you're doing action scenes, you want to go below 180. So anything from 90 to, Saving Private Ryan was, I think, 45 degrees. But, it depends. If you want, if you're working with high action scenes, you'll see something in Sky Girl on Friday where, there's gonna be a slow motion shot. I shot that with the 90-degree shutter angle. Your aperture, so instead of 22, which I think is pretty defocused, let's just do 4. And then you can adjust your ISO. I'm gonna leave it to 160 for now. So it's still black. What you do is, here's your camera component. So there's a couple things I'd like to do. Number one is under your lens settings. This is called the squeeze factor. That's for anamorphic. If you want to keep it spherical, you can do 1, but for anamorphic, you just press 2. And then there's something called crop. So I like to do 2.39. That's, that's anamorphic. Here, if we go down below, and there's something called exposure compensation. You can actually use that. So there we go. So if I adjust it to 4 or 6, it also comes down the lighting, so you can also light. But if you really want to cheat, you can use the exposure compensation. So this here is my camera. So if I right click and go to pilot, and that's how you could get to the screen here. So let's discuss, so we're here in this main thing. We're going to do focus. So I like to actually have, you probably see me do this a lot. I have the defocus plane, or debug focus plane. That's kind of like my little guide. Sometimes, especially if you're working with MetaHuman, the dropper isn't going to work. So what I normally do is go in and just kind of adjust. And that's kind of like my reference, so that's how you get the nice sharp thing. You can also have it focus on a character, I believe, under tracking, but I don't personally like using it. I would rather do everything by hand because you don't know what will happen. So I'd rather just keyframe it. So yeah, a couple things here. Usually if you don't want grain, and sometimes it gets really distracting, you can just turn that off. And you also can add grain in post. So if you go down to camera component, and this is where you can actually adjust stuff like bloom. So if I have a picture of the sun or something, we can actually just do something like this. Lens flares, how much I think it's overpowering, so I usually do 0.05 at starting, then kind of adjust. And then if you want to add film grain, it's down here. Gonna add a little bit of film grain, and not only that, but it actually helps make your shots a little more cinematic if you add a little bit of grain. So it's kind of like a little run through this camera. It's pretty easy, drag and drop. Very simple. That's why I like this thing. That's like a lot of the heavy lifting has been done. If we go through a couple things. This is something not to worry about. You know, I wouldn't worry too much about it, but just something to notice. As chromatic variation turned on. A variation. Sorry, I can't pronounce it. I don't think I completely messed that up, but that's okay. There's a post-processing here somewhere, I think. I wouldn't worry too much. Yep, right here. So a lot of that stuff, they kind of do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So that's just something to know. So I'm gonna go film something, and we're gonna use one of these cameras, one of many actually. So I'm going to film some B-roll here, because I gotta go back to my editing. I've been, like I said, Skygirl will hopefully be done by Friday. I've just really been really busy working on that, doing a lot of editing, doing stuff in post. It's getting up there. It's getting close to that release date, so it's just one of those things. You've worked on a project long enough, you don't know what to expect from it. You don't know, you know. It's just that weird bias, you know. Oh yeah. If you ever want, like, literally, when it comes to camera movements, I see people working in, like, trying to do hero shots, these 360 Michael Bay kind of shots, and they keyframe it, and it's kind of rough. So what I recommend is knowing the crane. This will actually make things a lot easier if you know how to work with it. So crane is pretty easy. You basically control the pitch, and so you can actually control the pitch, and that's going to move your camera. So if you need to, like, move something along the lines and kind of move the camera, you can do that. Pretty useful tool, I think. On that, I think you can also have your camera look at something, so you know, you can have it kind of swing around or whatever. But it gives you a pretty good. You'll see in Skygirl, like, I used a crane shot. Use this for a very important shot. You'll notice how smooth it is. So we're back here. So I have a shot. But I'm not going to worry about too much. So I have here my camera. So if I pilot, there's a couple of things I want to do. Also, first of all, I'm going to delete that. We're done with this. There we go. So I want to know, like, where she's getting up. Okay, I know exactly what to do. And I think it's like a high angle down here. So I'm going to keep the angle like this. But also what I want to do is I'll probably make it to a canted angle. So I'm going to change the roll to like 4 degrees. I want it to be kind of crooked. Something's a little off. So if we do this, and that, I also want to establish a camera shake. Because on her perspective, and it's always think about reflection. That's really what the camera is, I would describe it. So when she gets up, I think that's when the camera is going to change. And something like this. I think that'll work. So the first thing I'm going to do is now we're going to go to this main camera thing, and then this is where I'm talking about the focus. So I'm going to change the focus from him to her when she stands up. So you can use the eyedropper, but I like to use the plane, so it works. But the main thing I like to do is focus on the eye. So I'm trying to make sure the eye is just well focused, and there we go. 3, 2, 1, and go. I think that's a pretty good start. So a couple things as well. So if we go to Cinematic Viewport, what that does is kind of scales it up. But also kind of gets rid of the icons here. Not only that, but you can also use a composition overlay, so you can use a thirds grid. You should have done one with the golden ratio, but whatever. So rule of thirds works pretty well. Yep. So that's good. So yeah, it's pretty simple. Just fairly drag and drop. If you want to do complex camera moves, I would rely on like cranes and rails for that. Eventually I'll have to get into like composition and framing, because that's kind of a huge strength of mine. That's kind of a, when it comes down to why do I choose certain camera angles. It's these little decisions here from A to B. That's really what, it's kind of part of filmmaking, There's something cinematic about it, but that's how it is. So that'll do for me today. I know it's kind of short, but I want to get back to working on Sky Girl. Gonna render this and kind of get back into my editing. I just wanted to shoot some B-roll. So, anyways, if anyone has any questions, let me know. Yeah, who knows? I'll probably teach like a course on like some basic cinematography. Who knows? Like why do I choose certain angles? Why do I think like what's the best approach? So anyway, yeah, that's it. If anyone has any questions, let me know. Thank you for watching.